Hi, my name is Roland and welcome to my Vectrex Roller Show. Today I would like to show you a new flash card for the Nintendo Game Boy Advance, also called GBA. And as my subscribers will know, I already showed many flash and multi-cards for different systems on my channel, and some months ago I showed you the M3 and Easy Flash 4. If you want to get the complete picture about GBA flash cards, I strongly recommend that you go and watch that older video first, in case you have not seen that. I explained some details there that might be important for you to know, and I will not tell that here again now. I will also link to that video in the description text. Before we begin, a short disclaimer: I don't want to go into the whole piracy issue here with flash cards. Collectors like me are not really into pirating games, as we always want to have the original games complete in box anyway, and there are some nice homebrew programs available as well. Another important thing to mention is what you see here is the current status for August 2015, so if you watch this video in the future, it might be that new and better GBA flash cards might have come out in the meantime. I think that there is also an EverDrive flash card for the GBA in development, but I don't really know the current status of that project and if it ever will come out, so at the moment I cannot really tell you much about that. Now let's have a look at the new Chinese Easy Flash 4, and before someone will say now, but Roland, the Easy Flash 4 has been on the market for many years. What you see here is the latest Easy Flash 4 re-release from 2015, and this one has now a spring-loaded MicroSD card slot and can handle MicroSD cards up to 32 GB. It comes in a black box instead of a white one, and also the cartridge shell is now black. Here we have the old and new Easy Flash 4 versions side by side. The old one on the left side has a white translucent case and a mini SD card slot, and as it can get quite hard to find mini SD cards nowadays, many people had to use adapters together with micro SD cards, and of course that's not the best solution, as you could run into contact issues then. On the old model, the SD card slot was not spring-loaded, so it was quite complicated to get the SD card out, and they fixed it now for the new microSD version. For test purposes I used this SanDisk 32 GB microSD card. This is the latest Extreme Plus Class 10 U3 model, and you don't really need such a fast SD card, but as they become now cheaper anyway, I wanted to see if the Easy Flash can handle such a modern card. By the way, I don't expect that the Easy Flash will work with all SD cards on the market, but I didn't find any compatibility list on the web. As I wanted to use the full capacity, I formatted the card using FAT32 instead of FAT16, as it was the case with the old version, which could only handle 2 GB maximum. Here we see now the menu in action, and the fast 32 GB microSD card seems to work just fine. I didn't do any speed tests if the Easy Flash makes use of the available performance of the faster SD card, as I really don't care if a game would load now 2 seconds faster or not. There is not much new compared to the old version of the Easy Flash. You still can install also Nintendo DS games if you have a special DS slot 1 card, and all the other parameters of the card are also the same. When I made this video, the current kernel version was 1.77. On the old version I had on the previous cartridge model, there was an ugly looking hand-drawn Star Wars skin on the front end, and now they replaced it with a clean looking user interface, so I really like that. Even I switched the menu to English, there is still some Chinese text here and there, for example when loading a game or the help text, but that's not really a big thing now. As on the old version, you still have a limit on the number of files per directory that can be listed on the screen. I'm not 100% sure, I think it is about 78 files per directory. There is one folder called Safer on the card, and that's where all the save files are stored. That one can hold more than 78 files, as it needs to keep the data for all games. Also, the new Easy Flash has a battery built in, and in some years you will have to replace that, otherwise you cannot write game saves back to the SD card anymore. That is the case also with most older Easy Flash cards and also the M3 movie player card. When you find an old used one on your flea market, you should expect that you need to solder a new battery onto the PCB. Only a few old versions of the Easy Flash 4 had a rechargeable battery built in. Games up to 16 MB will be loaded quite fast and easy, but when you click on a ROM file that is bigger than 16 MB, you get a message, and such a ROM needs to be copied to the so-called NOR memory first. Unfortunately, this will take quite long, even several minutes, but after that you can start the installed game quite fast next time until you override it with another ROM. Also, the new Easy Flash 4 MicroSD model works on all GBA models and GameCube Gameboy player, and also in slot 2 of the DS and DS Lite. As far as I know, there is only a small percentage of games not working, and I did not experience any slowdown so far. But I did not test Nintendo DS games, and I did not try to run emulators, but I'm pretty sure they would also work on that card. When you want to play old black and white, Game Boy and Game Boy Color games using such a GBA flash card, you need to use a Game Boy emulator like Goomba, for example, but that makes only sense when using it on a Game Boy Micro, DS and DS Lite that don't have any hardware built in to run also older original Game Boy games. In all other cases, you better go and get the EverDrive GB flash card for old Game Boy and Game Boy Color games. Watch my review about that in case you want to know more. I did not do any power consumption tests, but in general, those flash cards use more power than standard game cartridges. The new Easy Flash 4 version does not have any real-time clock built in that was required for a few games like Pokemon, but I guess there should be patched ROM files out there somewhere, but I didn't write it out myself now. So, is it worth getting the new Easy Flash 2015 re-release? Well, if you already own an old Easy Flash 4 model that is still working and you don't really need the spring-loaded microSD card slot, you could try to update the kernel so that you can use SD cards bigger than 2 GB if you really need that. You do that at your own risk, of course. It worked fine for me, but you might break yours or certain features might not work for you anymore, so keep that in mind. I'm not responsible for any damage, and some people reported issues after updating the kernel. If you want to take the risk, go to the download page of the official Easy Flash web page, and there is a section where you can download the latest kernel or firmware version, which was 1.77 when I made this video. You put the unzipped file in the root directory of your SD card. It still might need to be a small SD card, 2 GB maximum, depending on your current kernel version installed. Then you boot your Easy Flash holding the right button on your GBA, and then you wait until the update is finished. The battery of your GBA should be charged, and it is also a good idea to connect the power supply. When the update worked, you see the new version number on the menu, and you can use bigger SD cards then. So, long story short, if you own the old Easy Flash 4 and the update works for you, there is not much reason to buy the new one, unless you want the spring-loaded card slot or a new card with a fresh battery. And maybe there are other enhancements on the new version I'm not aware of, maybe slightly higher loading speed or something like that. Now let's come to the weakest part of the whole Easy Flash 4 solution, both old and new. You need a PC software called Easy Client, and what it does, it patches your ROM files so that you can use them on the flash card, including game save functionality, and it also renames your ROM files. I will not show how to install the games here, as there are many tutorials out there, and this video here would get too long then. First, you need to download the latest Easy Client software from the official Easy Flash webpage, and this is where the mess starts. There are 3 versions, and I had to look on the file dates to find out which one is probably the latest version. It did not run on my Windows 10 machine, also not in Windows XP compatibility mode, but I could get it running on an old, slow Windows XP laptop. The Easy Client software works if you patch the files one by one manually, but you know how some people are, they always want more and cannot get enough, especially if they bought a 32GB SD card. So if you are dreaming about patching whole ROM collections automatically, you cannot really do that, at least not with the crappy Easy Client PC software. You can only select a small number of input files at once, and even then the software crashes and has quite many quality issues. At the end of this video I would like to mention that there is another solution to play GBA games on real hardware on a DS and DS Lite. This is the Easy Flash 3-in-1 expansion pack, but it does not work on Game Boy Advance systems and therefore might be a subject for another video if there is enough interest for that. So what do I think now about the new Easy Flash 4 MicroSD 2015 model? Compared to the old Easy Flash 4 model, the spring-loaded MicroSD slot is an improvement and you can use MicroSD cards up to 32GB without any adapter, which is also nice. If you already own an old version of the Easy Flash 4, you can try to update the kernel version in case you want to use SD cards bigger than 2GB. The producer of the flash card does maintain the necessary software components, but there they focus more on the kernel software and not so much on the PC client. Currently you cannot really patch huge collections of ROM files with a few mouse clicks, at least not with the software that comes with the flash card. The PC client program is buggy as hell, but maybe you are a flash card guru who knows all the tricks, maybe you know better tools, or you just have too much time on your hands, then this might not be any issue for you. In my personal opinion, even today the good old M3 movie player is still the better GBA flash card, in case you still can find it somewhere and if you don't really need more than 2GB on your SD card, but then it is very likely you need to replace the internal battery. So let's wait and see if a new EverDrive GBA will come out in the future and if it will be better than the new Easy Flash 4 or M3. But if you don't want to wait and you want a new GBA flash card now, there is not much else available on the market anyway, and once you get all your ROM files patched, the Easy Flash 4 does work quite well. So I hope that was interesting and helpful for you. Please like, share and subscribe. Thanks for watching.